Hello and welcome to Undercurrent. I'm Angela Albuquerque and your host for this episode. Well, we start off this program looking at banking and how credit is dissolving the world's economy.
It's not me describing it, it's economists. Some economists are saying that we're due for a worse depression than the Great Depression. It's just that there have been various levers pressed and various factors like the mining booms and what have you that have delayed that occurring. It's like the false wave before a tsunami. Sort of the water pulls out and then there's calm and then suddenly, the tsunami comes in. You'll notice that there's common practice for people. If you go to the supermarket, you'll see people pulling out their card, and quite often it's credit. And you hear stories in the media about people tying themselves over with credit rather than having the money to pay for stuff. So with the expansion of credit, it's sort of resulted in a bit of a false sense of security economically. Without that, we'd already be falling over. I mean, the credit crunch is basically around the corner. The predictions are quite dire. How it actually transpires is a bit hard to sort of predict because we're in sort of slightly new territory. There's two types of banking systems. There's one banking system which sort of got whitewashed out of history a little bit. The way that some Muslim banks work, for example, or have worked, is very similar to the way Christian banking was in Europe a few hundred years ago. There was a period of time in Europe where, I think it was 300 or 400 years, where, say, a loaf of bread was the same price. There was basically no inflation. The system we have now is heavily based on interest and on fractional reserve banking. And that's basically a pyramid scheme. I mean, people understand what a pyramid scheme is, but this is a pyramid scheme on a global scale. Whereas the other system basically forbids interest. Interest at one stage was a crime that attracted capital punishment. Money was loaned to someone in those days to buy a home. They weren't allowed to foreclose on the home, and the debt had to be forgiven after a certain period of time. I think it was 7 or 10 years. But certain forces, financial forces over time that got kings into debt through war, put pressure on the kings, like the King of England, to change the laws so that foreclosures could take place and so that interest could be charged. And that's undermined the value of money. Money is a reflection of your work, labour. Everything that is manufactured or any service that's provided requires someone to do something. And that is what money is meant to reflect. It's a way of trading your time and effort with someone else using another medium. And the problem is now money is a commodity. The message is that government basically can serve one interest only. It can either serve the banks, which it's doing at the moment, and it has been for many decades, or it can serve the people that elected it. Perhaps I could use an analogy. The bankers are like Count Dracula, a vampire. Money in the economy is like blood. So you have basically the situation where Dracula or the banks are in charge of the blood bank, and then you have the policeman, which is the government, and that policeman is meant to stop that happening. But what's happened is Dracula's bitten the policeman, and now the policeman's turned into a vampire as well. So the government is assisting the banks rather than regulating them like they used to in the before the 80s. When the Hawke Keating Labor government came into power, they basically took away the regulation from the banking system. So they allowed banks to self-regulate. So there's the Dracula in charge of the blood bank, and they also floated the dollar. People will argue this way and that about those things, but China today, for example, is got a fixed exchange rate. So it's basically like we were, prior to the 80s. Well, in the 1936 Royal Commission, which was called because we were going through the Great Depression and the Commonwealth Bank was interfered with by the London banks, in particular the Private Bank of England. They basically infiltrated the bank with their own people, the bank board, and by the peak of the Great Depression, Australia had a huge debt to London banks. The debt of the states by themselves, it's not counting Commonwealth debt, was £700 million, which I would estimate in today's money is about probably $700 billion. Currently, our debt is over $500 billion. Well, the Royal Commission it actually pulled a lot of punches. obviously exposure of some of the bank practices, but it goes nowhere near in addressing all of the bad practices of the banks. So it's just a slight expose, if you like.
Burlesque is all the rage, and the Pinup Community Christmas Party was well underway last weekend, and our reporter Bass went along and checked it out.
Tonight we are at the Perth Pinup Community Christmas Party, and what an event it's promising to be, with burlesque, with cabaret, and with some very colourful characters on stage. So let's go in and check it out.
Santa baby, just slip a sable under the
So what a wonderful performance by you all. Can you tell me a little bit about what inspired this?
I think we all just have a bit of love for classic vintage and burlesque, and it's really good for, you know, a bit of team spirit as well. Good for your own personal confidence and morale, and it's great to get fit as well. So all of that together, lots of fun.
that I haven't kissed.
And so what encouraged you to join the team?
Me personally, if I can get deep and personal for a minute, after out of a bit of depression, I saw the poster and thought, you know what, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. So I thought I'd do something different, and I saw the poster and went, bring it on.
And an angel all here, Santa baby.
So the Perth Pinup Community is a group for women who love vintage fashion. I founded the group in 2013. We've just hit over 1,000 local members now, which is pretty phenomenal for women who just love to dress in a vintage style, but we're growing every single day. You can see we've completely flourished tonight. We have so many people joining us for so many incredible meetups every single month.
What inspired this lovely piece that you've got on?
I really love a lot of vintage garments, and I found this beautiful vintage garment online, and I thought I have to make something exactly like it, and I already had some fabric in my stash, so I made it up.
It looks luminous and very brilliant.
Thank you.
I'm here with the dapper Matt, and here's the MC for tonight.
Yeah, it's been fun so far, sort of thing. The girls have been absolutely lovely, and great to see the guys all dressed up tonight as well.
The greatest showman here, just holding this top hat.
I do. I've got a whole wardrobe full of them. A lot of op shopping, a lot of bargain hunting, and yeah, very addicted to it. But my wife's Miss Lady Lace, so I've got a lot to keep up with, sort of thing.
Amazing. And what made you join the Perth Pinup Community and dress up so handsomely?
I was inspired by Miss Vintage Orchid, which just over here. She's an amazing woman. Massive transformation from her. Big inspiration.
What would you say to other people out there that would like to be new members as part of this community?
Come do it. Just do it. It's a beautiful place, it's beautiful people.
Just the getting together, getting to know new people, new friends, and we all sort of stick together and celebrate the pinup lifestyle.
You look amazing.
Thank you very much.
Why don't you do
Are you enjoying the Christmas party?
Absolutely. The most glamorous event I've actually been in a very long time. So, yeah.
Awesome. And you go by a stage name, what's that?
Miss Vintage Orchid.
Lovely, just like the orchids in Singapore.
That's exactly it, because I'm born there.
So what got you into the Perth Pinup Community?
I think when I was trying to seek confidence in myself, because I did lose a little bit of confidence at one stage after a long run of IVF. And I did the one thing that I would never think I would do, but I was brave, and I messaged Nicole through Instagram. I've never met her, I've only followed her on Instagram for a while, and I just said, you're a very empowering woman, and I love seeing your stuff because it's so positive. And she was so humble, she replied back to me, and that's how I pretty much was, yeah, that's how I got here. So let's just say I've never been happier with myself.
with my baby tonight? And pitch the woo with my baby tonight. I'd like to coo with my baby tonight and pitch the woo.
It's Christmas time. Do you shop online or do you go to the shops yourselves? Alex hit the streets of Perth to find out what your preference is.
So with Christmas coming up, do you prefer to do your Christmas shopping online or in store?
I prefer to go in store to see what I'm getting.
I definitely prefer going into the stores. I guess I get more ideas and things like that from checking out what's on the shelves, but I don't really do much online shopping, to be honest.
I have shopped both, online and in-store.
Okay, which do you prefer?
Online,
Why is that?
because most of the WA stores don't really have great Christmas shows and things like that.
So with Christmas shopping coming up, do you prefer to do online shopping or in-store?
Online.
Why is that?
Just it's a bit more convenient with work and the hours, and you can do it whenever you feel like.
Do you feel like it has better selection or?
Yeah, there's a lot more sort of variety online, a lot more options, and yeah.
Do you feel like online shopping has an impact, especially over Christmas with retailers?
I don't work in retail, but I'm sure that it does impact a lot of businesses.
And why do you prefer shopping in store? Is it just getting to see the stuff or?
I like to see the quality of the product, and I don't like the hassle of returning things if they're not what I expect them to be. So it's just a personal preference.
Do you feel like online shopping, especially over like big festive events, has had an impact on just traditional stores?
Yeah, I think definitely. I think with the society, it's a lot more technology and things like that kind of takes away, I guess, the significance of going in there and taking the time out of your day to go and find something and pick a gift. But now I guess you can kind of just spend, all of your time just searching online. It's kind of, I think, takes away like the significance of the gift buying.
And do you feel like online shopping, especially during festive seasons and that, has had a impact on traditional retailers?
I think so. I think obviously there's a lot more pressure for them to keep up with a lot of online places like adapting Black Friday and places like that. So that does impact, I guess, their sales. But I think the shops are still crazy busy in that sense. So it's neither here nor there, I think.
Do you feel like online shopping has had, especially over Christmas, has had an impact on general retailers?
Definitely, no two ways about it. I would be sad to be a retailer having to put up with the massive online shopping presence.
Don't go away. I'll be back after the break with more stories from Perth and our Undercurrent team.